Go live. Okay, good afternoon everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to pop a quick disclaimer on the screen. This is just to say that this event will be recorded and sent to our YouTube live channel. If you'd prefer not to be recorded, we kindly ask that you leave now. And also if you wouldn't mind just muting your microphones and disabling your videos. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. Hi everybody, my name's Tamsin Blanchard. I'm the curator of Fashion Open Studio, and we are on day 2 of Fashion Revolution Week, and we're really thrilled to have with us today Caroline Smithson, who is the founder of Sewn. And Caroline's going to be here talking a little bit about what she does, and also showing us a really brilliant technique called toothbrush rug making. I think I got that right.
Yeah.
And I see that actually you can actually make a tapestry needle for this from a toothbrush.
That's right, yeah. So traditionally what would happen is, and with an old plastic toothbrush, you would have a hole at the bottom that you would hang your toothbrush up after you'd brushed your teeth or whatever. So not so much now, but you can still use a toothbrush. But if you have a flat one, particularly one of the cheaper toothbrushes, you can then whittle away a little hole in the corner of it, which becomes the eye of the needle, where you're going to put your scrap through. And then you would chisel the other end where the brushes were. You could remove the brushes, and then you would just chisel that into a point. And it's very easy because it's quite a soft material. And then that would be the point of the needle. So you'd have the point and the eye, and then you could recycle. So it's 100% recycling technique. So even from the tools that you make to what you end up with. So I mean, I'm at the moment, I use some quite rudimentary tools that are not toothbrushes, because we don't have plastic toothbrushes in our house. But I make these kind of, I don't know if you can see these very sort of caveman style tools. So if you like, I could show you how to do that, or we can do that later.
Yeah, why don't you show us how to do that now while you're doing it, and we can have a chat.
So if anybody doesn't have a needle and they'd like to have one, I'm going to show you how to do it. So I use a wire like this, but you can use any kind of thickness of wire. This one was used with a much thinner wire. So here I would just take off a length. It's probably about 15 centimeters long. Snap it with my very old pliers. And then the principle really is not to hurt yourself. So I would put the two ends together and in a loop, in an O shape, or a sort of like this. And then I would try to cover those two rough ends with a strip of masking tape. So this wire's a little bit tough.
Could you use a coat hanger to do this? You
could use a coat hanger. You could use, what else could you use? I mean, really, there's quite a lot of things you could, like, I guess you could even use do they still do those ties for plastic bags that have wire in them? I can't remember.
Yeah.
You could probably use that. So then what I'm doing is I'm just covering the sharp ends with this masking tape. So I have now got, and I give it a little manipulation with my pliers. So I've now got a thicker end that I put my fabric through, and I've got a thinner end that I use as the sort of the sharp, but really it doesn't really matter how it ends up. Okay.
Amazing.
Oh.
So you're going to show us a little bit later on how to make the rug.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Sewn? What about your background? Because you obviously have a long experience in the fashion industry, and you started Sewn last year.
Well, actually, it was in the end of 2018, so a couple of years ago. And I started it as well. I've been working in fashion for 20 years, and I started in denim, which obviously is the big culprit for all the environmental issues at the moment, although that is really picking up now. I worked then. I worked through ready to wear. So I worked at companies like Chloe, at Louis Vuitton, Alexander McQueen, and then I got to a point where I realized that my children were playing in a playground that was twice the legal limit of pollution. And I thought between that and all the waste I was seeing coming out of the fashion industry, I wanted to put those two things together. And I wanted to create a company where we were addressing pollution and sort of and all this waste that we're making, so trying to kind of stop the landfill from overflowing with garments that people weren't wearing. I mean, I read an article saying that on average we wear what we buy 4 times, and then it gets discarded, or the average life cycle of something in your wardrobe would be 5 weeks. And I thought that was absolutely hideous, not only just because of the environmental end of it, but also because of all the people that are involved and all the effort that people have made to make that clothing a reality, for it then to be discarded. I thought there has to be a reason there where we're going to kind of slow that down. So everything about Sewn that we do now is a slow fashion based idea. So we will dye botanically, we will allow artisans time to make clothing for us, or to make parts of clothing for us that will allow, you know, we're not the fast fashion company where it's sort of faster, cheaper. We're kind of behind them saying, how long do you need to make this, and how can we support you to provide these beautiful garments that we're making. And and so far it's kind of worked out really well. But part of our business is that it's zero waste. So we have 3 arms to the business. The first one is Sewn, which is the collection. Then we have resewn, which is when we take back what we've just recently done with matches. We've taken back 70% of the denim stock, and we've taken it back and we've re-embroidered it. And then we've sold it back to them again, which means that basically we're keeping that life cycle of clothing extending, so that it doesn't go out of fashion. We're just reusing it to kind of give it a new breath of life, so it feels new and fresh, but actually it's still not going into landfill. So that our main ambition really is not to let anything go into markdown, because we want to.
That's your own denim stock, so unsold stock.
Yeah. But then we'll also use vintage denim. We work with a girl called Marlin Denim, and she'll recycle sort of vintage denim and put different elements together. We do lots of patching and mending workshops, which is kind of like this pair of jeans that I've got here, where I've taken bits of other pieces of denim and sewn them into patches to fix a pair of jeans that would otherwise have looked like this. So yeah, it's all about basically, if you're going to buy something, making sure you're buying something that is really the best for the environment that you possibly can make, and if you can recycle or reuse.
So how does that work as a business? You're creating a business model where you're immediately limiting the amount that you're selling and making. How does that work as a business?
Well, I mean, it works because I think well, I mean, it's hard for any business to be working at the moment, I think, in coronavirus.
Yeah.
But it's attractive to people that are more interested in the kind of the educated view, so people that will want, the people that will feel, people that know how difficult the environment is at the moment, to buy correctly. And I think what we'll do is, what we don't do is recreate collections every 4 times a year. We do it twice a year, and we hope that people will keep rebuying into styles that we've done more as like a kind of a uniform than into sort of a one-hit fashion cycle. And hopefully it will slow down the cycle and people will just buy well and less.
Yeah, we'll be opening up for questions at the end of the session. So if anybody does have any questions for Caroline, please put them in the chat. You have a really long-standing love of craft.
Yeah.
Tell us about how that started. Were you doing it as a child?
Yeah, I mean, I started at school. So I started making, well, the image of the talk for today is a kind of a proggy rug. So I started making one of those at school when I was about 9. And then even younger, maybe 7.
What is that? What's
so
that?
It's when you take strips of fabric, and then you take a hessian, like a sacking, like a potato sack. Then you would stretch it onto a frame, and then you would just poke the fabric and pull it down from underneath the frame. So you're working with 2 hands, one's going down, one's pulling like this, and you're going up and down with ribbons of excess scrap, and then you're making coloured shapes basically. And yeah, so you end up with these really quite delicious thick rugs to put your feet into. Yeah, so I started with that, and then I started lace making, and then I won an award as a child for as a lace maker. We used to make lace teddy bears. And then,
oh, wow.
I used to decorate the end of my bobbins with beads, different kind of like coloured beads and things like that, because you would work in pairs, and you would exchange them over. And then I started doing work with a company I set up called Craftwork. So while I was working in the fashion industry, I had another sideline called Craftwork, which is where we used to do very large installation wall hangings. We did some for the RCA, and we used to do shop windows and things as well. So that would be giant macrame from raw wool. So before wool gets woven into the wool we know that we would knit with, it comes in these very large hanks, like big chunky. They almost look like sheep's tails in a way. So we would twist those up and macrame those, and then have recycled pipes that we would put in between as sort of jewels, and then knots, and then pom-poms and things like that. And they were really fun to make, very heavy, very labor intensive, but yeah, it was good.
So you are very hands-on, aren't you? And has working on launching your own brand given you the opportunity to be as hands-on as you want to be?
I mean, no, but what I've found that I've been able to move to a point where I've been able to teach other people how to use those crafts. So I've been able to sit with members of the team and be like, have you tried this technique? We could use this, and sort of allow them to go away and figure it out, and go out to artisans and say, you know, we're thinking about something like this, what can you do? And then and be able to keep that conversation going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have been able to, I mean, in that I can direct it, but I'm not given the time really now to sit down.
And you're working with artisans in the Atlas Mountains in Morocco.
Yeah, we're working with this incredible company called the Anu, which is a bit like Etsy for craftsmen. So it's an online marketplace where the craftspeople are allowed to sell direct. So it was started by a guy called Dan, who was in the Peace Corps, and he went to Morocco, and he realized that, you know, a lot of Moroccan rugs at the moment are very sort of in fashion, aren't they? And I think, you know, every household pretty much in London has one. So he was noticing that the artisans were giving were given very little money for the work that they were doing, and in fact they were just given rugs to copy, and so they were losing their crafts way in their kind of form of design. They were losing that connection. So he started this platform where he gave the artisans, which quite often were illiterate, he gave them a platform where they could go and use an office with a computer, where they could upload their own pictures of the camera that they were all given by the Anu. And so they would take pictures of their own work, upload them using symbols rather than words. And then you can search through, so there are different, on that website, there are different symbols that say kind of like naturally dyed or hand woven and things like that. And you can search for things that they also do beautiful woodwork. So it's been a really lovely group of people to work with. And when we do reopen in the store, we'll be doing a talk with the founder of that. So it's a really exciting collaboration. Very happy. Oh, I've lost you.
Sorry, you've had to put everything on hold, obviously, at the moment. I know, I mean, it's really tough for businesses. Yeah. How are you coping with that?
I mean, I think like everybody else, there are up days and down days. There's days are now full with, where they would be full with kind of fit sessions and pattern cutting and dyeing, that they're filled now with applications for banks and applications for loans for things and funding. The BFC have got something which is British Fashion Council. They have got they're running a funding project which is going to be really helpful to a lot of people. It's a small pot of cash, but it will just help people to sustain their businesses. I mean, I think we're all just hoping and praying that, you know, online will take off, and that at the end of it, when we re-emerge from this chrysalis that we're in, we'll come out wanting to sort of buy well and the right thing, and we just have to hope that people maintain that desire to move forward in a really positive way rather than.
I like the idea of us being in a chrysalis.
Yeah.
So we've got half an hour. Show us some techniques and crafts.
So there are many ways to extend the life cycle of textiles that you have in your home. I've just pulled a few things from around the house because obviously I'm in the studio today. And these are, like I said, patchwork cushions that we've made using the offcuts of the collection. Then we fill them with lavender, and then they are to keep in your drawer where and it keeps the moths away. So that's really nice. And then, but today we're going to be talking about Swedish toothbrush rugs. So here's one I made earlier in true Blue Peter fashion. So this is a rug that I have been making. I'm going to tilt the camera down so you can see. This is a rug I've been making, and inside here is, this is one of, I have two daughters, which is why everything is pink in my house. I have two, this is the baby's dress. This is my eldest daughter's pajamas. This is some offcuts from my toiling at work. And this was an old duvet cover, which was white, but then has been naturally dyed using household objects. So you can use something like avocado pit. And I did this dye with a combination of avocado pit and madder root. So you can buy the madder root already cut and ready to dye with from Wild Colours. It's a really great website. It's all natural dyes. You can also use things like onion skins, which is very, very cheap. Doesn't require a mordant. Is a brilliant thing. Everybody cooks with onions that I'm aware of. I do anyway. And then also, to get a lovely yellow colour, you can use something called English Weld, which you can grow in the garden, but you can also buy ready-made. So here is my bedspread that I have dyed. because I like to have a bit of variant in the color, I did a little quick tie dye on it before I put it in the dye bath. So that is it. What you need is, now you've got your needle. Hopefully everybody has a needle. We need to rip this bedspread into strips that are about 4 to 5 centimeters wide. So if I find the end of it, what you can do is, when you find the grain of the fabric, it's very simple to not have to spend the time measuring out strips, but just to snip to the width that you want here, and then just rip. And then eventually, after lots and lots of ripping, you'll end up with enough to start your mat with. I've got a pile I've already made here. I also have some white colour as well, some offcuts from the collection, and a little ochre colour too. So the most complicated part of this, and bearing in mind this isn't a complicated technique, it requires one knot, so don't be overwhelmed. It is, to start off, you would take 2 ends of your ripped fabric. So end 1 and end 2. And what you need to do now is join the 2 together. So this is a very simple technique. So you take the 2 ends together like this, and you fold them. So now I have this. And then I'm going to snip here with the scissors, not all the way to the end of the fold, but just to about part way down. So now I have this break. So when I take the 2 ends apart, I'm able to thread one through the other. And once I have the eye back out here and here, so I'm going to take one eye and I'm going to thread in the long end and pull it the whole way through. And then just give that a tug. So there you have an extended piece of cloth. So now, holding the knotted end, holding the knotted end with your thumb and using 2 fingers, you keep, this is going to end up being like your spine. So you're not going to do anything with that end. Just going to let that there. So you're going to go wrap round 2 fingers over and through. And then you're just going to pull that the whole way out. So there, what we've done, and then when you pull it tight, you let it fall onto one finger, pull it, and you've ended up with a tiny little loop, like this. So keep holding the spine end and do your next one. So over, I'm going to put the spine end behind. I'm going to take my 2, sorry, I'm going to, the spine end at the front, take my 2 pieces, go round, catch the spine. It's a half hitch knot, so it's very, very simple to do. Go round, and through, and pull. So there we go. So you just want to be catching your fingertip end. So what I feel like I'm always doing here is sort of like a craft knuckle duster. So I'm trying to weave all my fingers in. So again, holding the spine, the back, go round 2 fingers, pull through, and then up to get the tension. So a lot of people You can do this flat, it might be easier, but for this demonstration, I'm doing it upwards so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so now I have 3 circles. So the aim here is to have 6 knots. So 6 knots will start a circular rug. You can do more, you could do 12 and come back up again, and then you would start a more of an oval shaped rug, but here we're going to do a circle. So I'm just going to take these off, and don't worry about them because they're not going to fall apart. And then I'm going to move my fingers down and do the process again. So spine is away, wrap round, catch the spine, and pull. Okay, that's knot 4. Then up to 5, 2 fingers, and the back. Pull 3. Oh, going to tangle. And the back. What would be a slightly easier way to do it is to take the spine, put it between your knees, so you have some tension to work against, so you don't get in such tangles. Let me try it like that for you. Go around, do the hole, pull through, and that's another one. And then the last knot, go around, pull it through. And that's it. So that's, I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 knots. So what you'll notice is when you pull it apart, you have a spine and then you have the loops coming off the side. So now this is the tricky bit, which I'm going to do in reverse for you. So it's going to be even more tricky. Keeping all the spine together, we need to connect the 2 circles. So this is where we begin. So we have always have 2 ends. You have one end, which is the working end, and one end, which is, I call it the filler. So the filler end is just constantly being woven back through, round and round and round in a circle, just to create a little bit more density. So because we want to have a nice thick rug. So we thread the needle. So coming from the spine end, no, the spine end we leave, sorry. Then the working end we thread. So using the eye in your needle, you thread through. So you have an end like this. And then we're going to start the work. So we'll always use the filler end. We'll always swing round to the side. So here we are with a full circle. That one. And with the needle, I'm going to go through the first hole and then back onto myself, which will create the link, and it's the first knot that we're going to do. So here we should have now the first circle. Then we just keep working around. So always putting the filler to one side, catching the filler, looping the needle under, getting a half hitch knot here, pulling. And so it begins. And then we just start to go find your next hole, do the same thing again. Filler over to one side, under, half hitch, and pull. So it's a very, very, very simple technique. But the thing is that you just need to kind of find your mojo with it. And you may find that it's not, you don't think it's as neat as it should be, but it does just tend to right itself as you go. So here's one that is kind of part way done, because as you're going round and round in circles, you'll find that your loops that you're knotting back through get quite big. So I'm just going to show you what to do in that case. So I'm going to add another piece onto here, show you that again. Taken from my roll. I'm just going to snip the two ends. Okay, and I'm going to thread one through the other again. And the end. Look through. Give it a tug. Thread the needle. So what we want to do is to not to have too many gaps, because this will make the rug, it will just make the rug not as so consistent. You kind of want to keep the same amount of loops all the time. So going back through, here's my filler. I'm going, pinching both the ends, going under, half hitch knot, pull, as before, but I still have quite a big gap here. So I'm going to go back in twice onto that. So my filler's here again, to the side, back through again, and I'm going to do a double knot into what was a single knot before, to just create 2 stitches. It's a bit like a very basic crochet. So back through, I'm on the next hole now, going back through half hitch knot, pulling it, and again I still have a big hole here, so I'm going to do a second one into there. So filler over to one side, needle goes through, and then I'll pull out the end. And that's basically the technique. And you just keep going through, keep going round and round until you have the size of rug that you want. And yeah, you can put any kind of scrap into here. So I've used in the past tea towels, I've used bedspreads, I've used old kids' clothes. And it just kind of just keeps coming through. And then
it looks very straightforward the way that you are demonstrating it, Caroline. I think there's lots of people watching who are going to be doing this afternoon.
I mean,
yeah. Questions.
Okay. What I love about this technique is it grows really quickly, and it doesn't require very much skill. So that's me in a craft.
So how long to make the rug that you've the ready-made one?
This one took me about a day. But it depends how committed you are. I mean, I will sort of do a bit of cooking in between, or some planting or whatever at the moment, and then I'll come back to it. But about a day, it really, I mean, also the chunkier the fabric you use, the more ground you're going to cover quickly.
Yeah,
so,
that's quite gratifying. It can happen quite quickly.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions from people watching on YouTube. Rosie Olivia is asking where she can get the recipes, instructions for the dyes. She says it's so cool.
Yeah. Well, it's very, I mean, there are so many websites now that you can get it from. In fact, the company that sells the dye, they also give some really interesting history on the dyes, and they give some recipes as well. So each dye,
what's the company called?
It's called Wild Colours.
Wild Colours.
Wildcolours.co.uk.
Okay, great.
So they will give you a really interesting sort of easy in recipes into it, but then it's a lot of sort of trial and error. So you might want to go with a stronger dye, you might want to leave it to boil for longer, you might want to leave it to soak for longer, but you can just keep testing with scraps of fabric till you've got the color that you're happy with, and then you can go from there. So yeah, it's not an exact science, but there are some sort of basic techniques to start with. Yeah, it's really fun. On our Instagram, on Sewn Circle, we've just done a week celebrating a dyer from Amsterdam called Lucilla, and she is an incredible natural dyer. She works, she does a lot of workshops, and she comes from a chemistry background. So she's a really specific way. So if you really wanted to go into it, I would recommend going on to one of her online courses at the moment, and she's got loads of great. I mean, she's the pro of all pros. Right. Yeah.
Amazing. We've got Ursula de Castro has joined us on the Zoom. Ursula, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. That was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I've been trying to get my daughter to come and join, but she's doing her online schoolwork. But it's absolutely I love it. I think I might need a tutorial at the end of this, because I joined a little bit late and I get very confused with online instructions. I'm sure lots of people would, but and what a brilliant way of reading all of the last bits. I'm thinking both from your own scraps, but also you could sausage t-shirts that way.
Yeah, I mean, I know a friend of mine who's done a rug only with old band t-shirts.
Yeah.
So and jersey's a great one to use because it doesn't fray. So there are some fabrics that are a nightmare, and where the ends are coming off all the time, and jersey just rolls up.
Probably would quite like it. You know, when my partner Filippo and I, when we still had the brand, we did a collection for, believe it or not, Tesco clothing.
Yeah.
And we were in Lanka, and we refused to take these types of offcuts precisely because we knew that the local population, that's exactly what they do. Yeah. So a lot of the journey around upcycling was to understand what we couldn't take from the floor, you know, the floors. But the concept of using this with our own everyday waste from sheets.
Yes. No, exactly.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And I mean, I know a lot of people have white sheets. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously really pretty when you do it with a floral sheet as well. If you might go to a secondhand shop or something like that, and they sell them really cheap.
Yeah.
You can kind of.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why I tie dye my my plain sheets, because then it just gives a little bit of gradient of color, which is really nice.
Well, I'm about to learn much more around tie-dyeing on Friday, because I'm joining a big group of American fiber sheds and botanical colors. It's the name.
Yeah.
And it's huge, actually. In the US, is really taking over, and it's completely upscalable, apparently.
So
again, the idea that you can just, you know, shove a t-shirt in some onion and then come out with this is it's super different.
No, it's brilliant, because nothing, I mean, it goes back to that zero waste principle, isn't it? Nothing is waste, you know, and it's completely drained of all of its use, you know. So,
yeah. And I don't know about you, but in my experience, things that come from the discarded and the wasted are always the one that I become, you know, much more attached to.
Absolutely.
It's that lot.
Yeah. Completely, it's that connection, isn't it? And I think it's about, like Tamsin's doing with Fashion Revolution. It really is feeling your connection with every piece of textile you have in your house. So it's feeling that story, isn't it? So I mean, I know there are things we never throw out because they have an emotional attachment to us, and it's sort of how to. I mean, I don't know. I think I might be sort of a semi-hoarder, and I'm not really sure. I just can't let go of particular clothing. But I know I'll never wear them, so then this would be the perfect outlet to put it into.
Yeah,
and we
no,
also
absolutely. In my case, I would.
Sorry, I'm just jumping in. We've got Deborah Barker also in the Zoom, who's giving some advice actually. Deborah, are you there? You sound like a seasoned natural dyer.
Yes, please.
Are you there, Deborah? Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't got my video on because I live in the countryside, and if I put the video on, you'll lose me completely. So I just keep my voice. But yeah, and also I was interested in what you were saying about Fibre Shed, because with Emma from the Southwest Bristol Fibre Shed, we're setting up a Fibre Shed UK at the moment. But my background is yeah. So we've been working with Sarah Mauer from Vogue,
yeah,
and a number of young designers, including Patrick, who just recently won the British Wool Design Award.
Yeah, I know Patrick. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of madder, I was just saying my background is a natural dye. The pH is really, really important. So it likes an alkaline environment.
Yeah.
And actually, it's really important to keep it below a boil if you don't want the browns.
Yeah.
So traditionally, you do 1, 2, 3, ouch, where you just put your fingers in, and if it hurts after more than 3 centimeters, it's too hot, which is quite a nice kind of easy way.
Yeah.
And it's sorry.
No, go ahead. I
was just going to say it's great to grow as well. I work with my daughter, who's a shepherd at Clawhatch Farm, and I have a dye garden there as well. And we grow madder, and after 3 years, you know, we've got enough to keep us going to dye the yarn that comes from.
Oh, brilliant! You're going to have to give me your contact details then.
Yeah, but I would recommend anybody who's listening to just get some madder seeds. Natural Wild Colour, who was mentioned earlier, unfortunately are closed for the lockdown, but they do generally sell madder seeds, and if you plant them in a pot and leave them, you can actually just grow your own madder on the back doorstep, which I feel so much more sustainable.
I mean, they're quite simple, aren't they, to dye?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I mean, to grow.
Sorry, which seeds?
Sorry?
What the?
It's MADDER. It's like a kind of a root, like a turmeric root.
Yeah.
I think.
Brilliant. Victoria. It's you basically, it's a member of the sticky weed family, cleavers, that we get here, and you need to use the 3rd year root when it's about the size of your little finger. So but you can just leave it in a pot and leave it to do its own thing, and then after 3 years you can dig the root up, leave some in, and it's very easy to use. I'm really passionate about it because a lot of people use avocado on the internet, and I feel like it's giving people a reason to use a fruit that we shouldn't be using in the way that we're using it.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm really sorry, we're going to have to wrap this up. I wanted just, if you could just share, Caroline, again, the name of the needle that you're using, that people can
well, it's one that I've made, so it would be a toothbrush needle. So it would be a toothbrush if I had a plastic toothbrush, but it's just a piece of wire in an oval that you squeeze in the middle, and then you wrap the middle with masking tape, and then you have an eye, and then you have an eye, and then you have the point. Kind of.
Okay, so Inklink Trust, who asked that, we will also share a link to a YouTube video of how to make this needle. Well, actually, you can watch again at the beginning because Caroline showed us how to do it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing. That's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm really enjoying what you're doing.
That was brilliant.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Deborah, as well, for joining in. That's really fascinating. We'll catch up too.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.